Hello again, Dave.
Hello again, Matt. Okay, we're gonna move on to Michael R. of Easton, Pennsylvania. What would Please Hold be without Michael R. of Easton, Pennsylvania? And I actually got Rolly to scan the front of the Christmas card that I got from the R family. I'm just going to go over here and grab it. So this is the front of the Christmas card that you'll, I imagine you'll be putting on the screen while we're talking about this. And this was another one of those empathy situations where I'm not a husband, I'm not a boyfriend, but I definitely have empathy for fathers in their father situation. Michael was in the same situation with. While you're looking at them on the screen, there's Michael on the left, and then his wife Grace, and then Lil Grace, their daughter, and Brock, their son-in-law, and that's Brock and Lil Grace's baby, Michael's grandchild, Zoe. And of course, the Cerebus cutout from Funny Pages, the one that wasn't used in Funny Pages because that part had to be reshot. But this is what the cutout looked like in the movie. Cerebus Charlie Brown shirt. So definitely the visiting Nazi in the R family. Charlie Brown shirt Cerebus. I thought that was very funny on Owen Klein's part, that he specifically wanted that shot of Cerebus for Funny Pages. It's like, believe me, if there's any Cerebus that no one would ever want to have in their comic store, it's Charlie Brown shirt Cerebus. But same situation. Michael would say from time to time, mentioning that Brock and Lil Grace are still together, but no sign of a wedding yet. And it's like it's one of those situations where every father wants his daughters happily and safely married. They don't want them just shacked up with somebody. And the most uncomfortable experience that I had with that was one of the limo drivers for Emerald Limousine, who was a new driver, and I hadn't met him before. And he picked me up and introduced himself, and he said, you know my daughter? And I went, oh, I do. And he said, yes, and he named her name. And I thought, oh, that's one that I just, not in quotation marks, just banged a few times, and then that was it. And it's like, here's her father driving me someplace, and it's like, that's really uncomfortable. You don't want to ever be in the situation of being forced to recognize that you did that to another man's pride and joy daughter, despoiling her, in effect. And that's exactly what I was doing. And it's like, well, okay, you've always done that. Like everyone that you slept with, that you had absolutely no intention of marrying or even living with or even dating for any length of time, that's what you were doing to another man's daughter. Don't do stuff like that. So getting to Michael's question. Hi, Dave. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Michael. I just started rereading Guy's phone book and said to myself, self, Dave's British accents for Prince Keith, Richard George, Harrison Starkey, plus everyone else's written accents is to me dead on perfect. Did you act out the characters first by talking to yourself, or did you write out what the character is going to say and then modify the written words to sound like the character you wanted to portray in the scene? Well, the process there was definitely method acting mentally the character. It's I would get the voice in my head, and certainly the Mick Jagger voice was always a dominant voice in my head because it's a great character. I mean, Mick Jagger is an actual person, but who Mick Jagger presents as, and the Mick Jagger that everybody imagines that they know mentally, which is, I'm sure, completely different from who Mick Jagger is a great character. And I always wanted to write, a movie or a television show for Mick Jagger. When they did a pretty good job on Saturday Night Live writing Mick Jagger when he was on Dan Aykroyd doing Tom Snyder's program, doing his Tom Snyder impression. But it wasn't really the Mick Jagger character. It was a little too trying not to lean too far into who Mick Jagger was. So it was a matter of, okay, what would they say and how would they say it? And that got sketched at the same time that I was writing the dialogue. So it was definitely an interaction between, okay, here's, we'll simplify it just down to Mick and Keith with the Church and State Volume 2 sequence. And, okay, how do they interact, and what is it that they're going to say to each other? And then, having said this, what do they look like, and how close do we have to be looking at them to really convey the humor of the iconic character? Again, Mick Jagger is, whoever he actually is Mick Jagger only when, he's around himself and people that he actually knows, family and friends. Keith Richards is Keith Richards, which is completely different from, again, the iconic Keith Richards. I think that's got to be one of the toughest things about being in a relationship with somebody who is that famous, where this isn't the person that I know that everybody else feels like they own a part of that person. So, and because I was doing comics, I would never actually act out the character because there wasn't going to be sound on the page. It's just written, so it had to be written as accurately as possible, and then the dialogue had to interact with the character on the page, and the panel-to-panel progression had to be developed simultaneously. So when you go on to say, boy, I would have liked to be in the room watching Gerard listen to you trying to capture the accent by speaking the voices, then jotting the words down with the quote, correct, unquote spelling, laugh out loud. You'd have to ask Gerard, but I'm pretty sure I never really did that. If I was doing the voices in front of him, then I wouldn't be getting the reaction from him that I would get when he actually read the pages, because he'd be reacting as much to whatever it is that I had been acting out in the studio as he would to what's on the page. And it's like, well, we're not selling me acting out in the studio. We're selling what's on the page, which ties in with the thing of the studio being absolutely silent while I'm working. It's people are going to fill the silence with whatever they want to fill the silence with, but in terms of my participation in their reading experience, it's going to be completely silent. It's all on the page. And having said that, I appreciate the compliment. The written accent is, to me, dead on perfect. You have to realize that it may be dead on perfect to you as an American, and it may be dead on perfect to me as a Canadian. But for a lot of Brits, this just makes their flesh crawl. It's like, don't do that. I mean, you really don't know what you're doing, and you really don't know what you're doing in a major way. So it's just it's like fingernails on the chalkboard. The example that is always cited is Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins, doing Bert, I think the character was, with the Cockney accent, and it's like that destroyed American-British relations for decades, because they would play Mary Poppins every either Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve on the BBC, and it would just make everybody's molars grind. Dick Van Dyke's Bert is an extreme example of that, because first of all, Mary Poppins was made by Disney. It was an American studio, and it was Dick Van Dyke was coming off of the run of the Dick Van Dyke Show, which was the most successful TV show at the time, and consequently, nobody was really in the situation, having signed him up to play Bert, to say, your Cockney accent is really bad. Can we get you a coach that can tell you? Even if you start thinking about it, too thoroughly, you go, Julie Andrews' molars must have been grinding, but she's Julie Andrews. He's Dick Van Dyke. Never the twain shall meet. It's not her place to say to a big star like Dick Van Dyke, your Cockney accent is terrible. He really does need a voice coach. The lead female in a major production like that doesn't say that to the lead male. It would be up to the producer, the director, or whoever it is, or Walt Disney to say something has to be done about that accent. It'd be interesting. I hope that some of our British listeners will be listening to this, and will let you know exactly how bad the accents are. And just rubbing it in, I've pulled out Church and State Volume 2, because I am still proud of the dialogue. I am still proud of the phonetic transcription, which is reasonably accurate, I think. And so here we are, starting on page 695, the splash page of Flying Off the Handle at Oblique Angles. I was wondering if you was coming back or not. Who's your friend? You're trying to humor me? I've gone dotty. How do you mean? Seeing things. Giant bugs. I say, I tried thinks I'm a figment of his imagination. With a talking head, where his belly ought to be. Audio visual, that is. So are you boys in town for the secret sacred wars? Secret sacred wars. What's that? What, I say, what are the secret sacred wars? Why, it's the culmination, son. The nexus point. The hole in the donut. The event of the millennium. The greatest story ever told, son. And you, I say, you are there. Cool. Sounds like a bit of a bash. You want to go? Yeah. Where'd you find that then? Behind the headrest, tucked up under the fight trim. Same place you always are. Keith, put it down. That's supposed to last until breakfast. Tomorrow. If I'm going to a bash, I'm not going straight, am I? Wait! So, blimey, Keith, you haven't been straight since 1409. Oh, yeah. I forgot. So, there you go. It's, I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed drawing it. But definitely that's one of those, there are much better voices for somebody to have in their head as a dominant note than Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. And I speak from experience on that, which is one of those, they really took it far to an extreme extent. I mean, how do you atone for their satanic majesty's requests and sympathy for the devil? It was an attempt on I think Keith's part on Voodoo Lounge to do Blinded by Rainbows, but you were way too far over in the discussion, and you never really made your way all the way back, and everybody has what everybody has that they're going to bring before God on Judgment Day, and what choices Mick Jagger made, and what choices Keith Richards made, I wouldn't want to be bringing that before God on Judgment Day. Just speaking personally.
Well, the classic is Keith did his autobiography, and supposedly when his dad died, he took some of his dad's ashes and mixed it with some cocaine and did a line of coke. And, it's in the book, and everybody's like, that's so shocking. And when he's getting interviewed, he's like, it was a joke. Obviously, I didn't do that. And everybody's going, no, Keith, we know you did. He's saying, oh, no, it was a joke. I didn't actually do that. Nobody would do that. It's like, yeah, Keith, we think you did that.
Yes. And what does that tell you? Like, that's... If you've gone that far over, there's no coming back from that. So yes, anything that you make a joke about, you're going to have trouble convincing people that no, you're not that bad. It's like, well, okay, but if there's anybody in a category that we would think of as being that bad, if Keith Richards isn't at the top of the list, he's definitely near the top of the list. So there's the answer on that one, Michael R. And thank you for the Christmas card. I will treasure it. It's just like being part of the family. The Charlie Brown shirt, Cerebus Nazi, that I have inside of me, in the bosom of your family.
That's pretty good.
Well, that's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at it.